harvested my plums today so that I didn't have to worry about losing any in the storm that's coming. They're not quite ripe, but they'll finish ripening in these baskets. And then I remembered there's still loads in the freezer. Jam it is then. Okay, so we've got about 4.5 kilos of plums, so we're going to need about 4.5 kilos of sugar later. So the only reason I'm weighing them out is so that we know how much sugar to add in a little while for a 50-50 recipe. Okay, so we've got all the plums in the pan. Happens to be my jamming pan. I've got quite a few, and we're going to get them cooked now. So we're just looking for them to be cooked down slightly, nice and soft, so that they won't become tough in the jam. I've also got about 20 jars ready to go. They just need sterilising. They're already clean, so I'm just going to get them soapy water washed and then through the oven to get them nice and hot and sterilised, ready for the jam. So I've got the sugar here. It's about 4.5 kilos. I've got some lemon juice just to add that little bit of extra pectin, and we're going to get that all in the pan and get it dissolved. Sugar is a part of the preservation process. If you don't use so much, if you lower the amount, you'll need to replace it with something. Because along with the acidity and the sterilisation, that's what's going to give us a product that's going to store well. Over in America, they often water bath their jam because they don't use the same recipes as us. And they often add calcium and pectin mix, which replaces some of our ingredients, and they use the water bathing as the form of sterilisation. And if you're wondering about the difference between regular sugar and jamming sugar, it's purely that they've put the pectin in there for you. But as you saw from what I just did, I used lemon juice instead, so I'm just using regular sugar. Always remember to get a pan that's big enough. I had one here that had half of it full of fruit, and you can see now we've put the sugar in, it's very nearly full. Next job is to get it up to a boiling point so that we can get the reaction that we need for it to set. However, boiling point isn't going to make it set. I've got to remove a lot of the liquid, so that is just going to steam off. But that will take as long as it takes, because we don't know exactly. So the first test I'll probably do is once I've got it to a nice rolling boil, I'll test it about 20 minutes later with the plate test. I destoned mine before I actually froze them, but I would always advise destoning before you cook, just because you can never find them all in the jam if you leave them in and then decide to get them out later, which is way too much hard work. So the jars are in the oven, they're now sterilising, they'll be in there for at least half an hour, and the jam has come to a rolling boil. So now we're looking at keeping it around that so that it can cook out. You'll notice that there is a lot of steam, and that's good, that's what we want, because we want some of the water to evaporate, else we are not going to get a jam. No matter how much pectin and all the rest of it, we need some of this water to leave. I have got a massive pans worth here. If you were doing a smaller amount, it would get to all of these states earlier, and it would probably get to setting point a lot earlier as well, because you've got less water to boil off. But I think this one's going to take some time. So, first plate test. Plate's nice and cool. Bit of jam out on the spoon. And pour the jam onto the plate. Just put that back in the right side. Okay, so you can see we've got it on the plate. Just need to let it cool down a bit. Now it's had approximately 20 minutes boiling away like this, and it's gone down quite a bit. I'm not sure if it's enough yet. So the next thing that I've got to do to test it is put my finger against what I hope is not liquid anymore and push along the plate. And let's see if it wrinkles. No. See that it did not wrinkle, which means it needs more time. Tastes delicious, by the way. You can see here that the pan has gone down quite considerably, and this is the final test. And as my finger pushes across it, you can see the little wrinkles in the jam and how it already looks like proper jam. Got that good give there. And as it cools further, it'll set further. Here you'll see me sterilising some of the rest of the equipment with boiling water. It's a freshly boiled kettle. It's easier to do it this way just because I can use it over the lids and I can get everything sterilised quite easily. The lids, I'm not comfortable with putting them in anything other than boiling water because they do have those plastic innards which create the seal later. It's also important to not touch the inside of the jars or the lids later, and obviously to have clean hands. You'll notice that on top of the jam, the froth that was created from the boiling process is still sitting there. Now a lot of people discard this, but I see that as a waste because it comes off quite easily if you take it off with a spoon. And although it needs to be used quickly, you can't keep it for long periods of time, or just use it on breakfasts or whatever, or on some toast. It ends up a bit like a fluffy mousse. It's very sweet and tastes just like the jam, but it has got that sort of moussey texture. I would say that there was no essential pieces of kit, but if I was to buy one thing, I think it would definitely be the jamming funnel, because it stops you from making such a mess. And if you were able to get 2 pieces, then I'd go for the jug as well, because as you can see here, the jamming funnel is getting all that jam straight into the jars, and the jug is making it so much easier transferring it from one thing to another. They're just stainless steel, nothing fancy. But if I was going to get one jamming funnel, I'd probably get the narrow neck rather than the wide neck, just so that you could fit as many different jars under it as possible. You might have also noticed that the jam has changed colour from when we started. Now, sometimes this colour is just what's come out of the fruit. So, for example, the plums here, some of the colour has come out of the skins. Sometimes it's a form of oxidisation where oxygen gets into the fruit and changes the colour. Or the one that you don't want, really, is when you've overcooked the jam and you've actually managed to caramelise the sugar so that it goes with a brown colour. Personally, I don't like the flavour of that, so I wouldn't want it to go that far. I used to use wax discs to cover the tops of the jam before I screwed the lids on, but I don't do that anymore. I don't really see them as being compulsory. I prefer the confirmation of the vacuum, so when the poppy lids actually get that vacuum occur when they're cooling down, you can hear that pop and you know that they've sealed. So no need for the wax disc then, just another expense really. And talking about skins and them changing the colour, for me, I like the texture. It ends up as a chewy, sweet, candied piece of skin in there. So it's not really anything to be avoided. Some people don't like them and prefer to remove them, but I see it as a rather time-hungry bit of a faff really, so I don't do it. You'll also notice that when I put the jar lid on, it's from when the jam was extremely hot. We need this heat to make sure that the vacuum is formed within. If you leave it till it cools, you're not going to get that escape of air from where it changes from a hot liquid to a cold solid. It also means that I fill the jam jars quite high up, so at the very least to the neck of the jar, and sometimes up within the screw area of the jar, if you know what I mean, where the little bits stick out to catch the lug lid as you screw it on, but never ever right to the top. Another tip is that if you want to clean off your jar rims because you spilled a bit of jam on it, just a bit of white vinegar on a cloth and wipe it round, and then it'll be good to seal. When the jars have cooled off, I will get them labelled up, but then I will also store them somewhere cool and dark because the light and heat degrades the taste and length of storage. Another good sign that the jam will set. I think that's got you thinking, well, I'll try some jam now because it looks quite easy. Thanks for watching. Bye!